So I really fell for the protein hype. I felt hook, line and sinker. And this is my story. It's a story about the 1970s. It's a story about protein. It's a story about stories. It's a story about propaganda. And it's also a story about the realization that changed the way that I, and possibly you, will think about nutrition forever.
Main feature of Breakfast Fortnight, the Egg Marketing Board's big promotion to encourage everyone to go to work on an egg, are the egg chicks. They'll visit you at breakfast time, and if you've got eggs on the menu, you get a premium bond. If you haven't, they'll give you a free sample of eggs, that is. Of course, first thing in the morning, one often feels a bit egg-bound, not really inclined to come out of one's shell to chat up a bird on the doorstep, even if she is the opposite of an old boiler. But if you've got an egg on the boil, you're suddenly a premium bond better off. As for the Milk Marketing Board, they go to work on the chicks.
So growing up in the 1970s in Sheffield, food was really not an issue. There were only really two things that you needed to know about food. One was drink your milk, and the other was get enough protein. These were basically the only things that we ever were told about food that I can recall. At school it was mentioned, but it was also mentioned a lot in advertising. Do you remember the old milk adverts and the meat adverts, and that milk will make your bones strong? And anything you ever heard about food was always related somehow to protein, and that it was important that we got our protein, which meant eating meat, it meant eating dairy. So I grew up believing, like many of us, that basically this was all that food was about. It was just about making sure you got enough protein. If you got enough protein, you were not going to wither away and you were not going to die. That was the message that I got. Enter my daughter. So my daughter in 2016 decided that she was going to go vegetarian. I knew nothing about going vegetarian. It's something I'd never really thought about, apart from feeling sorry for the people who were vegetarian because they were obviously not getting enough protein, and obviously they were just going to wither away and die. But now, how did I feel? My own daughter was now confronting me with the reality that she wanted to go vegetarian. So obviously, having been programmed, having received all the programming and the propaganda about protein, I was now worried that my daughter would turn pale, get brittle bones, and yeah, ultimately not be with us anymore. So as a concerned father, I told her immediately, it was a knee-jerk reaction, what you need to be doing is eating lots and lots of eggs, because obviously as a vegetarian she was still permitted to eat eggs. This was my top advice to my daughter after she announced that she was going to be vegetarian. But my daughter, shortly afterwards, started reassuring me that she was going to get enough protein from her food and that I didn't have to worry so much about her eating lots and lots of eggs. I couldn't believe this. I mean, everybody knew that you had to eat lots and lots of protein. It was the only thing that mattered, literally. And we're not talking about me as a young man here. We're talking about me at age 50. This is how strong the propaganda was. Then my daughter asked me a question, and I'm going to ask the same question to you. She said, Dad, tell me the biggest, strongest animals in the world that you can think of right now. So, thought for a moment, elephant popped into my mind. Good, she said. Okay, so elephants are not meat eaters, they're not carnivores, they're herbivores. So how is it that they can be so strong if they're not eating meat? This got me thinking, and then I discovered that there are other animals too, such as gorillas, hippopotamuses, and lots of other animals like horses, cows, lots and lots of animals are not actually carnivores, and these animals also, strangely enough, tend to be some of the strongest animals on the planet. So how could this be? How could it possibly be that these animals were surviving somehow without eating meat? And then my daughter, who obviously was a lot cleverer than me, advised me to read a book, which I did, and I advise anybody to read it. It's an absolutely fantastic book called How Not to Die by Dr. Greger. And at this point, I was reading, and my whole worldview was beginning to change, because I was realizing that actually there's protein in everything, like literally everything. So in nuts, in beans, in broccoli, in greens, in vegetables, protein is everywhere. And that actually is the reason why some of these animals could grow so strong. So that got me thinking. The book that I continued to read also got me thinking about fibre. I'd never thought about fibre. I mean, hey, nobody ever mentioned fibre to me. But it turns out that fibre is actually one of the most important, perhaps now for me, the most important ingredient or nutrient in our entire food, in everything that we eat. So fibre, it turns out, is essential for so many things. So good digestion, a good immune system, it staves off most, if not all, helps with almost all chronic diseases, including diabetes too. The list is endless. That fibre is something that we should be getting a lot of. And we were never told about this. Why didn't they tell us? Who would have guessed that fibre could be so important? Did you know, for instance, that 90 to 95% of Americans are actually deficient in fibre? That's shocking. Nobody knows either. It's like this silent thing that nobody mentions. But most people still believe that protein is the thing that we need to be concentrating on. And I've come to realize that we're all the victims of fantastically good marketing from the meat and dairy industry. They've managed to get us to drink gallons, hundreds, thousands, millions of gallons of milk, to eat meat at almost every meal. I mean, it's still prevalent now. We used to, in the 1970s, we might have had meat once a week, twice a week. Now it's like people are eating meat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So fantastic marketing, but it's actually caused so many problems. So we've got obesity, we've got diabetes, we've got an endless number of chronic diseases, most of which are caused by us eating, well, meat and dairy and processed food. So this video was about explaining that we don't need to be worried so much about protein, and we need to be thinking more about fibre. So where do we get our fibre? Well, that's perhaps beyond the remit of this video. I just wanted to highlight the propaganda in this video. But my own journey has changed so much. I've now been vegan for 8 years. I absolutely love it. I really, really, really love it, and highly recommend it to any of you. It's changed my life. It's changed the health and the life of my wife as well. It's opened my mind to so much, enabling me to see the lies around food, have enabled me to see the lies around so many other things in our society. So I hope that this has been slightly inspirational for you to break out of the mindset that somehow if we move towards a plant-based diet, we're going to be deficient in protein. We're certainly not. I was propagandized. You've been probably propagandized, and I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Please, it always helps if you could subscribe and like. I'm on a mission, so hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you watch one of my following videos. Thank you very much for being here. Bye-bye.